Welcome everyone to the first community forum of the year, now under Spotlight PA. As they've mentioned, I'm Jose Delgado, the General Manager for the Berks County Bureau. If you're not familiar with Spotlight PA, we're an independent, nonpartisan, and nonprofit newsroom dedicated to high quality investigative and public service journalism about Pennsylvania state government and other statewide issues. We were founded in 2019, and the Berks Bureau was launched in 2025. We're happy to welcome Dave to continue hosting the community forums under Spotlight PA Berks, and we want to encourage all of you to subscribe to our newsletter, Good Day Berks, which is a free uh, daily newsletter where you can keep receiving information about future forums and other curated local stories, updates, and community highlights. I'm posting the link for that on the chat. And now, a little disclaimer. You know how the news work. So, Spotlight PA provides community forums as a space for public discussion and engagement. The views, opinions, statements, and remarks expressed by speakers or participants are those of the individuals and do not necessarily reflect the views, editorial judgment, or positions of Spotlight PA, its employees, board members, funders, or affiliates. With that being said, I won't take more of your time. Before the end, I'm gonna also post on the chat some upcoming events for you to participate. And now let's go back to Dave.
Thank you, Jose, and thank you for welcoming these community forums to the Spotlight PA Berks Bureau. It's my pleasure to introduce our panel today, some very interesting speakers on a very important topic, namely how we're going to address the teacher shortage in Pennsylvania. We have three presenters. Laura Boyce is the Executive Director of Teach Plus Pennsylvania. Teach Plus Pennsylvania has launched an initiative to address the challenges of teacher shortage called PA Needs Teachers. In September, they released a series of reports outlining the policies needed to rebuild this vital pipeline. Laura has been with Teach Plus since 2017, previously having served as a school teacher and principal. She served on several boards and commissions, including Governor Josh Shapiro's transition team. Mary Franciscus is the Human Resource Director at the Berks County Intermediate Unit. She's been with the Berks County IU since 2023, and she previously worked in the Chester County IU and with the YMCA of Brandywine. And our third presenter is Rebecca West Burns, who is the Dean of Education at Kutztown University. She has served in that position since 2023. She's a nationally recognized leader in teacher education, having served on several national organizations and worked in higher education. She's the author of numerous articles and 4 books. We'll sell the books at the end of the session. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Laura Boyce. Laura, to you.
Thank you so much, Dave, and thank you to Dave and Jose for this opportunity. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. And I know it was suggested in the chat, we do also ask if everybody is able to stay on mute just so that we are able to hear each other. And obviously we're on Zoom. You never know, things can happen. If you're having trouble hearing any of us or notice anything else, please just let us know in the chat and we'll do our best to adjust. But again, thank you so much for the opportunity for us to share a little bit about Pennsylvania's teacher shortage crisis, both from a state perspective as well as zooming in on Berks County. And I'm really privileged to be here today, as Dave introduced, with Mary Franciscus from the Berks County IU, along with Dr. Rebecca West Burns. So we are going to tag team today and hopefully keep this very conversational, as well as give you the opportunity to ask questions as we dive into some of the data on the scope of the teacher shortage crisis, talk a little bit about root causes, but most importantly, talk about solutions that are already happening in Berks County and across Pennsylvania, as well as potential things that we could do to all work together to continue to address this challenge. A little bit about PA Needs Teachers. This is the coalition that is co-led by my organization, Teach Plus, along with the National Center on Education and the Economy. We launched back in 2022 to bring together organizations, individuals from the K to 12 sector, as well as higher education, as well as government and nonprofits, all those who see the importance of a strong educator workforce and want to work to address this growing crisis around ensuring that we have well-qualified, excellent, experienced, and diverse teachers in front of every classroom in Pennsylvania. So we'll share a little bit more about some of the work of our coalition as we go. So first off, it's great to see a group here that is very diverse. I know that some people are coming from the world of education, and many of you are just concerned citizens. And so you might be wondering, why should the average Pennsylvanian even worry about teacher shortages? Why is this issue important? Well, it might be self-evident. We often find that people understand intuitively from their own experience the power and the impact of a great teacher that they can have on children's lives. But the data also tells us that great teachers are extremely important. Research tells us that teacher quality is the #1 in-school factor that impacts student achievement. And as you can see from the chart that's shown here, teacher quality has been found to be associated with a host of lifelong outcomes for students. Not only does having a well-qualified and prepared teacher make you as a student more likely to perform academically, graduate from high school, attend college, it even has associations with lifetime earnings. So having those great teachers is important not only for individual students, but for our economy as a Commonwealth, our future workforce across all different industries. All of that starts with having great teachers to prepare students for whatever future they choose. Now, conversely, if we don't have great teachers or we don't have enough great teachers, that can really have a negative impact, according to the research, on a whole host of outcomes. And so national research has found that having teacher shortages leads to lower student achievement at the school level and the larger system level. It has a really big ripple effect on other teachers, because when you don't have enough teachers within a building, the burden then falls on the remaining or the existing teachers and administrators in that building to try to make up for and make do for the lack of enough teachers. And so then you start to have teachers who are losing their lunch periods to cover another class, or they're getting larger class sizes themselves. You have principals who aren't able to do some of their basic administrative duties because they're playing the role of substitute. So this leads to higher attrition, burnout, and dissatisfaction among remaining teachers and administrators. And for students, there's not only the academic effects, there's also the lack of that stability and connection that they feel with their teacher. If they're in a classroom with a long-term substitute or a revolving door of other teachers who are covering during their prep periods, that really affects students' social and emotional development as well as their academic growth. Obviously, when you don't have enough teachers, you also end up with higher class sizes. And there's a really high financial cost to high teacher turnover. It takes a lot of money for school districts to recruit and train teachers. And so when you have teachers leaving at high rates, that is estimated to cost school districts between $11,000 and $25,000 per teacher just to fill that vacancy with another qualified teacher. I'm going to turn it over to Mary now to talk a little bit more locally about the impacts that Berks County has seen because of growing teacher vacancies.
Thank you, Laura. So we reached out to the HR professionals within the Berks County school districts to collect information on what has been the impact of teacher vacancies. And their responses included, there's a sense of fear among the administrators in the buildings. They want to have qualified teachers in the classroom. Administration has increased pressure on them to ensure quality instruction and legal compliance with IEPs. And then higher classroom sizes for veteran teachers are causing feelings of being overworked and overstressed. Additional impact of teacher vacancies include students are not receiving specialized classroom experiences, using a building substitute to fill vacancies until a certified candidate can be identified depletes the pool of the day-to-day substitutes. And student schedules have needed to be changed to reduce the number of students taking foreign languages. And finally, special education teacher vacancies deprive students of their qualified social and emotional support.
Thanks, Mary. So hopefully this starts to paint a picture for you of some of those consequences that we can see both in the national research and right here in Berks County when we don't have enough teachers and we have too many teacher vacancies. So how bad is it? What's the scope of this crisis? We hear from policymakers frequently who say, is there really a teacher shortage? Is this really a crisis? Um, Obviously, it's bad if we don't have enough teachers, but is it true that we don't have enough teachers? So we want to share a little bit of anecdotes and data about the scope of the teacher shortage crisis, again, statewide and locally. Here you'll see on the left-hand side just a snapshot of a few of the hundreds of articles that have been published around Pennsylvania over the last few years, really documenting how this teacher shortage crisis is touching every corner of our Commonwealth. The teacher shortage crisis is not equally experienced by every school district, and there are certain schools that have historically had a hard time attracting qualified staff and continue to experience the shortage more dramatically than others. But it is fair to say, based on the data, that in the past 5 years or so, we have seen signs of a growing statewide crisis. On the right-hand side of this slide, this top graph shows, and this is a graph from Dr. Ed Fuller from Penn State, who's probably the leading Pennsylvania-based education workforce researcher, showing how the blue line is teacher certifications that have been issued in Pennsylvania. So this is a sign of a well-qualified and well-prepared, fully certified teacher. You can see that these have declined from a high in 2012 to 2013 down to below 6,000 a year in recent years. And in 2020 to 21, we saw for the first time the number of emergency permits, which are issued to teachers who are not certified when they're going in to fill a vacancy that where a district could not find an otherwise certified teacher. Those have now surpassed the number of full certifications issued every year. And that's been the case now for the past 4 or 5 years in a row. And so we are putting in more non-fully certified teachers into classrooms than we are certifying new fully prepared teachers every year. And that's a really important warning sign for us all that we have a crisis and need to grow that blue line back again. We also have particular shortages in specific geographic areas. We know that urban and rural school districts tend to experience shortages more than suburban school districts. They tend to be worse in low income and low wealth areas compared to more affluent areas. And they tend to be more severe in more underfunded districts. If you think about the way our state funds education and the recent Commonwealth Court decision about adequate school funding. And so some reasons for that is oftentimes in these poorer or more underfunded districts, there are fewer resources. They have less funding available, which means lower teacher salaries, sometimes worse working conditions. So it makes it harder to recruit teachers in some of those school settings. We also see much greater shortages in certain subject areas. So particularly special education, science, technology, secondary mathematics courses. And then this last graph shows us that we also have specific shortages for particular demographic groups. And so we have a particularly severe shortage of teachers of color in Pennsylvania, where the percentage of students of color is nearly 40% at this point across Pennsylvania, but the percentage of teachers of color remains around 6%. So teachers of color are very underrepresented compared to the student population. This is just a different way of visualizing the severity of the teacher crisis statewide. State data tells us that there are over 2,000 vacancies across Pennsylvania for teacher positions. And on top of that, we have about or over 6,500 teachers on emergency permits. So those are, again, teachers where there is a person in the front of the classroom, but they're not fully certified. And the research tells us that on average, not always, but on average, those teachers are less well prepared, less effective, and less likely to stay than fully certified teachers. And then we have high teacher attrition with over 8,000 teachers leaving per year. So add all this up together, and we estimate that we need to be producing at least 9 to 10,000 teachers a year. And right now we're only producing about 6,000 teachers a year. This is a map showing the severity of the crisis by county. And this map is actually from 3 years ago. And so you'll see the shortage in Berks County 3 years ago was rated as severe. It's actually gotten worse from then and is now rated extremely severe. Specifically, and I'm going to drop into the chat a fact sheet that's specific to Berks County that was produced by the PNE Teachers Coalition. In Berks County, we estimate based on state data that 292 additional qualified teachers are needed across all of the school districts. Certificates issued in Berks County from Berks County educator preparation programs are down 45% compared to a decade ago. And overall, teacher qualifications have gone down, meaning we have more teachers who have less experience, who are not fully certified, or who are teaching out of their certified field. There's also a large diversity gap between the student population and the teacher population, and a relatively high attrition rate. So for all of those reasons, our assessment of the severity of the crisis in Berks County, based on the analysis of Dr. Ed Fuller, is that the teacher shortage in Berks County is extremely severe, and it's very important that we're all working together to address it. Again, I'm going to turn it over to Mary to give us a little bit more local flavor on what this looks like on a district level basis in Berks County based on her conversations with local districts.
So again, we reached out to the HR professionals within the school districts in Berks County, and they shared the average number of teacher vacancies per school, excluding the Reading School District, was 2. The number of teacher vacancies in the Reading School District alone was 89. And then the number of vacancies covered by individuals having emergency certification was 25, and then 93 in the Reading School District. So that emergency certification, it's a temporary authorization that allows someone to teach in a public school, even if they don't hold a full standard teaching certificate. It's meant to help the districts fill vacancies when they cannot find a fully certified teacher for the position. So in order to be qualified to have an emergency certification, individuals have to have a bachelor's degree in any field, and then they're eligible to be an emergency certified in Pennsylvania.
Thanks, Mary. So as you can hear, the emergency certification is really sort of a Band-Aid that we're increasingly becoming reliant on because we are not producing enough certified teachers. And I think the Reading School District is just such a great example of what I mentioned earlier about how different education issues can affect the teacher shortage. Reading is numerically the most underfunded school district in the Commonwealth on a per pupil basis based on the state's own adequacy calculation. And so there you see some of the challenges of a low wealth district that has been historically underfunded, really disproportionately experiencing this challenge, where they have so many more vacancies than all of the other districts, although all districts on average are experiencing more vacancies than usual. So why do we have this shortage? What is causing teachers to not be going into the profession at the same rates as in the past? What's causing teachers to leave the profession at higher rates than usual? In our analysis, in our first PA Needs Teachers report, which we'll link to at the end, there are 4 root causes that we've identified for why we have a shortage of highly qualified educators. And we'll come back to some of these, and some of these will connect to some of the individual examples you'll hear later. We're not going to go into a ton of detail on each of these, and definitely recommend the report. But here are the 4 reasons. Number 1, the financial value proposition for becoming a teacher in Pennsylvania continues to worsen because the cost of college and other expenses to get certified have continued to rise, while teacher compensation remains relatively low compared to other professions that require a bachelor's degree. You're not making a terrible salary generally as a teacher. You can make a living wage, but compared to becoming an engineer or a doctor or another profession requiring similar education, there is what we call a wage penalty for becoming a teacher. And meanwhile, college is becoming more and more expensive. Secondly, and maybe relatedly, interest in the teaching profession and overall the status of the profession continued to decline. And we see that in surveys of the general public and their perceptions of teaching, whether they would want their children to become teachers. Surveys of teachers being asked, would they recommend the profession to their students or to their former selves? All of these different data points have shown a very steady decline, really since the 70s, in the profession of teaching. And this is particularly so among younger generations. Just fewer and fewer young people are indicating that they're interested in becoming teachers. And so that just makes recruitment into the profession more and more difficult. We really have an image challenge within teaching, where it's very important that we recognize some of the challenges, but also think about and really communicate the rewards of teaching, the importance of great teachers, the opportunity to have a great impact on young people and get more people excited about entering the profession. Thirdly, many new teachers in Pennsylvania don't receive preparation and induction experiences that build their subject matter expertise and give them enough on-the-job clinical experience with the support of mentor teachers to make them likely to succeed. So if you are not getting that really high quality preparatory experience, either because you're coming in as an emergency permitted teacher with basically no training, or if you're going to an ed prep program that is not really high quality, that makes you less likely to succeed and less likely to stay. And so another way to better retain teachers is to really ensure that they're very well prepared. So that recruitment and retention can go hand in hand. And then finally, many Pennsylvania teachers experience stressful and isolating workplace conditions. There are fewer opportunities for career progression in the teaching profession compared to in many other industries. It can be sort of one size fits all unless you're going to go on to move into administration and out of the classroom. And oftentimes you're working by yourself within a classroom and not necessarily getting opportunities for collaboration, for advancement that you would see in other professions. So we see an example of this in a first-year teacher we heard from Susquehanna Township School District, who spoke at our first PA Teachers Summit, who said, "One of my kids asked me, 'Why did you choose to be a teacher?' one day." And another kid shouted from the side of the room, "Being a teacher sucks." And I was like, "Whoa, it's not that bad." But he said, "Well, my dad says it does. And I see on TikTok and I see online, all these people don't like teaching. And I'm on the same internet and they have a point. What they're seeing from their parents online and on the news, it doesn't look good. They're not inclined to go teach. They're not inclined to be in the place that they just struggled in because we have 40 kids in my class." So again, one example, but one of the tasks of our coalition and all of us is to think about how do we show appreciation for teachers, how do we work to address some of these challenging conditions, and also really work to change the image of the profession. So that leads us into solutions. The PA Needs Teachers Coalition has identified 6 policy principles that should guide any solutions to addressing teacher shortages. The first one is, in order to make teaching more attractive as a career, the job of the teacher must fundamentally change. We can't just recruit our way out of this problem. We have to actually address some of these working conditions that are making teachers want to leave. And we need to treat teachers like professionals and think about the conditions in other professional work environments like law firms and hospitals, provide competitive compensation, and offer opportunities for advancement. Secondly, and this is really important because we see in many states that the knee-jerk reaction, if we don't have enough teachers, is let's just make it easier to become a teacher. Let's just lower the bar. Maybe you don't need a college degree to be a teacher anymore. Maybe you don't need to have content knowledge. We'll take away some of the testing requirements. We really strongly believe that some of these measures that might lower the bar to become a teacher could be very counterproductive in the long run, because number one, they're going to reduce the quality of our teachers. And number two, it's going to continue to erode the status of the profession. And so we do believe that it might be tempting to just eliminate requirements. And we certainly should be eliminating not unnecessary requirements such as financial barriers to become a teacher. But we do believe it is important to keep a high bar to become a teacher. Third, any policy solutions that involve investment of additional public funds should improve both the quality and the quantity of the educator workforce. How do we both grow the pool and make it even more rigorous to become a teacher and or more aligned with the role at the same time? I'm going to skip over some of these other ones because I think they're fairly self-explanatory, and I want to get into some more concrete strategies that our coalition has been pursuing, and turn it over to for you to hear some real life examples. But in short, and this really sums up all of our policy principles here, we believe that bold and structural solutions are going to be necessary if we're going to address the root causes of the teacher shortage. We can't just do Band-Aid solutions here and there. We have to think about the system as a whole and how we're transforming the system from recruitment to preparation to induction to retention in order to grow and sustain the pipeline. So some of the 5 specific strategies that we have identified that have really driven a lot of our work, and you'll see connections in some of the initiatives that Mary and Rebecca talk about, are number 1, incentivizing high quality teacher preparation. So what do we mean by high quality teacher preparation? We are thinking about rigorous coursework, intentionally designed clinical experiences, meaning on-the-job training in actual schools, developed in close partnership with the schools themselves. So you're getting really authentic on-the-job experience that's based in research and really supported by excellent educators. Secondly, invest in teacher retention through well-defined career ladders. So thinking about how we really reimagine that teaching role to create those career progressions and using innovative staffing models to do so. Third, expanding pathways into teaching for youth and paraprofessionals. We have some untapped potential future teachers sitting in almost every school district and school across the country. Number 1 is the young people who are there who could be inspired to become future teachers and potentially even to start on their pathway towards becoming a certified teacher while they're still in high school. And secondly, the paraprofessionals, the classroom assistants and support staff who often have strong links to the community, strong experience, and a likelihood to stay within the school, but might need assistance to get that bachelor's degree and that teacher certification to make the transition to a full teacher. Fourth, improve the financial value proposition for becoming a teacher. If college is so expensive and teacher pay is not as competitive as other industries, how do we make it more affordable to become a teacher through, subsidized tuition, apprenticeship models, scholarship programs, loan forgiveness, and/or by improving teacher pay so that the cost benefit analysis is a little bit better as you're considering the profession. And then finally, improved data collection. We need to understand where the teacher shortages are, where things are working in order for us to make really targeted investments. And so we've made a lot of progress in the past few years in Pennsylvania. As of a few years ago, we didn't even know how many vacancies we had in Pennsylvania because that was not data that the state collected. And so we have had to really pursue at the policy level improved data collection and analysis so that we can actually start to understand and solve the problem. So with these policy strategies in mind, our PA Needs Teachers Coalition, which is 60 plus organizations strong, has advocated in the Pennsylvania State Capitol. We've worked with legislators on a number of different pieces of legislation, and we've produced reports, we hold summits, we hold roundtables around the state, and really we are working to ensure that the teacher shortage is an issue that the public and lawmakers care about, and that we are working towards evidence-based solutions. So just a few examples of that. We have worked with senators and representatives in Harrisburg, along with the governor, to pass a new student teacher stipend program where student teachers who previously had to do unpaid 12 plus week internships in schools to become certified now can receive a $10,000 scholarship or stipend during that time to help them cover living expenses and tuition and continue in the profession. That program started at $10 million. It's now up to $30 million. We continue to work to fully fund that program. There's a new program called Grow PA that is a scholarship program that allows students who are studying in high need fields, including teachers, including teaching, to get scholarships at PASHE schools to help them pay for tuition if they commit to then going and working in that field. There's a new career and technical education pathway in teaching so that high school students can get CTE credit and recognition as they start working towards becoming teachers. We now have statewide data on vacancies because we've passed legislation around that. A new law allows non-citizens to become certified to teach in Pennsylvania for the first time, so removing an unnecessary barrier for otherwise qualified people. And there's a new teacher apprenticeship pathway, so a different pathway in, particularly for paraprofessionals, through the workforce development pathway. So a few examples here at the state policy level, but I'd love to also highlight some really innovative local programming that is aligned with these different policy principles and strategies. So I'm going to turn it back over to Mary to talk about some Berks County homegrown initiatives.
Thank you, Laura. So some innovative Berks County programs that have been implemented to increase the teacher pipeline. It's just some of the few initiatives that are being implemented throughout the county. One is to track alumni success. Many former students in Berks County are returning to be teachers. Boost presence at job fairs. We're connecting directly to prospective candidates to let them know that Berks County is a great place to work. Hire certified interns. So we're bringing individuals already trained that have that intern certification. So an intern certification, or what's moving toward the experience-based certification, is an education program. It's structured educational linked pathway to full teacher certification. It allows an individual to teach full-time while completing a state-approved preparation program and is valid up to 3 years. So versus the emergency certification, which are stopgap solutions that are used by school districts to fill positions when certified teachers aren't available. The partnership with Kutztown University, leveraging the Teacher Leadership Academy for professional growth. And again, the use of emergency permits strategically, encouraging current teachers to support special education instruction. The Level Up Berks campaign was established in conjunction with the participating school districts in Berks County and career and technical centers to celebrate teaching as a noble and impactful profession. By highlighting the meaningful contributions of educators, the campaign aims to challenge negative perceptions, as Laura had spoken about previously, and inspire a new generation to pursue careers in education. As part of the campaign, a video was produced featuring educators and para-educators from our local school districts, showcasing their positive experiences and meaningful impacts on students. In addition, social media promotion highlighted these stories, bringing the dedication and passion of our school community to a wider audience. So the Level Up Berks campaign addressed 3 specific target groups: any high school or college students pursuing a degree in education, postgraduates seeking a second career in education, and the general public, with the aim of encouraging teaching as encouraging the interest in the teaching profession. The goal is to drive all 3 audiences to the levelupberks.org website. Visitors to the site can discover educational pathways and contact information to become an educator through all 5 colleges and universities in Berks County. Can view the career sites for all participating school districts and the career and technical centers in Berks County, and then gain insights from local educators about the rewarding field of education. So different ways we've been promoting the levelupberks.org campaign is through billboards, public service announcements, through social media, BARDA buses, and bus shelters.
So maybe you've seen one of those ads already, and maybe it's inspired you, or it's making you want to tap someone on the shoulder that you know and say, hey, have you considered teaching in Berks County? Thank you so much, Mary. So now we're going to bring in Dr. Rebecca West Burns from Kutztown University to share about the very impressive array of initiatives coming out of Kutztown, some of which connect to what Mary discussed. So Rebecca, take it away.
Thanks, Laura. So now we get to the how, right? And when you listen to Laura talk previously, she talked about how do we create these bold structural changes that Teach Plus has identified we need to do together to fix this teacher shortage. Go ahead, Laura. So I want to talk just a little bit about what we need to do. And first, we certainly have to change what we do. We have to change our actions. And that's usually where we start. A lot of the times when we're thinking about change, it's easiest to kind of change what we do first and what we can tinker with. But it's not only about changing what we do, we also have to change how we think. And you heard Laura talk a lot about the perceptions about teaching in general, the wage salaries. We have to think about teaching as a profession and how we are treating teachers and how we're recruiting them in. So it's both an action and a mindset. And when we do that, when we couple those together, thinking differently, doing differently, we'll be able to get this bold change to fix the teacher shortage. So you heard Laura also talk about the analogy of a pipeline, and I want to just give a little visual here that's going to help you see how the initiatives I'm talking about connect across this pipeline. So the pipeline can be thought of as having three main components: recruitment and how we attract teachers, preparation and how we prepare them, and also how we retain them. And so this attract, prepare, retain is actually the slogan of PTAN, which is the Pennsylvania Teacher Training Assistance Network. And this has really been their initiative. And so we have these things going on across the state, and I'm trying to kind of pull them all together to help everyone see that they're all aligned. We might use different language, but they're all aligned. So it's how do we get people in, how do we prepare them, and how do we retain them? And the thing is, you can see that right now those elements aren't attached. And you've heard Laura talk about how how we're losing teachers, not only in the retention piece connected to the workforce component, but go ahead, Laura, you can just click on these components here as we add more rain and we see the leaking stop. We don't want that, right? Exasperating this too, though, is also the recruitment component, because not only are youth hearing negative perceptions about teaching, but you may also have heard that we're in an enrollment cliff, which means there are fewer kids graduating high school that are going into college in general. So that means there's fewer people already who are coming into our workforce. So even though you may see the teacher shortage or think, oh, there's only two, vacancies per school district in Berks County, it's going to get worse because there are fewer teachers. And our district partners have told us verbally that over the next 5 to 10 years, we are going to see a large part of their populations, anywhere between 35 and 65% of their teaching force, retire. So if we're having people retire, we're losing them as they go because they're not staying longer, and we have fewer people coming in. We don't have a my problem and a you problem. We have a we problem. We have an our problem. And we have to start now thinking differently, doing differently so that this doesn't get worse and so that we're not using Band-Aids to try to keep them in. Because what happens with Band-Aids? They get soaked and they fall off, and this pipeline is going to burst. And that's not what we want to have happen. So go ahead, Laura. So how do we fix this, right? How do we stop using Band-Aids? How do we put it all together so that we can have a coherent teacher pipeline? Go ahead, Laura. We have to shore it up, and you're going to see these arrows. And the research is clear on this. If we want to have teachers stay in the profession longer as they come in and throughout, we need to go ahead, partner and work better together. We have to create partnerships. And in Pennsylvania, that involves schools and universities. It involves the IUs. It involves the career and technical education centers. And it also, go ahead, Laura, is undergirded by important supportive state policy and organizations like Teach Plus and other advocacy groups across the state. So we all have to work together to seal up that pipeline. And so let's talk a little bit how Kutztown University is doing this. And many of the sister schools, and you see Alvernia in the chat, universities are doing a lot of this work. I think one of the key pieces behind it is putting it all together so that we don't have a scatter plot of initiatives, but that we're using the elements that are there to think systemically across the pipeline. So go ahead, Laura. Laura talked about recruiting and attracting, and how do we get youth coming in? Well, one of the important things in our partnership development is to think about attracting students into the teaching profession. And so go ahead, Laura. When I first came to Kutztown University, oh, I'll keep talking about. So we have the teacher, sorry, I forgot this slide in here. We have attract them with our early college academy, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. We're going to talk about the prepare initiatives on, Laura mentioned about the high quality clinical experiences, the rigorous coursework. We're going to talk about that. And then finally, the last part of the pipeline, when you put it all together, is the retention. How are we thinking differently and doing differently and working in partnership to retain teachers as well? All right, so now let's talk about recruitment here. So when I came to Kutztown University just about 3 years ago, the first thing I did was reach out to our school districts to talk to our superintendents, to meet with the IU, to learn really about our area. And, one of the things that a superintendent told me was that, look, we have dual enrollment with Kutztown University, but it's underutilized. And I said, okay, tell me what, is underutilized about it. And the superintendent said, we need to help them get their feet on a college campus so that they can really see and feel what this is like. And I said, okay, let's get them to the college campus. And so we met in January of that year. She brought in some of the other superintendent colleagues. And within 9 months from conceptualization to implementation, from thinking differently and doing differently through partnership, we were able to create this early college academy. And so we have now about 30 school districts. We're in our second cohort. These are all the school districts from Berks. You're going to see all but 2 districts in Berks County that are partnering on this initiative. Basically, what happens is that high school students in their senior year come to Kutztown University 3 days a week. They get 2 courses in the fall, 2 courses in the spring. They get to graduate with a total of 12 credits that count towards general education and get experiences in education. So these are education courses. And then 2 days a week, they are doing an internship in their high school. So remember how Laura talked about that importance of hands-on experience? We're starting that in high school. And by starting it in high school and coupling it with the coursework and connecting that theory and practice together, it's either affirming that, yes, this is what I want to do, or for a few kids, they've said, you know what, I'm glad I tried this, but I don't think teaching's for me. And some might say, well, I don't know, is that a good thing? Are we steering them off before they start? And I think that it's better that you find out early on that classroom teaching may not be for you than to get so far into a program and realize later on that it's not for me and you have to change direction. It might delay you, cost more money, etc. So by working together, we can really give students a taste of that workforce component of teaching and help them get that early clinical experience and build on it as they go throughout. One last piece I'd like to talk about with this is that we have utilized, Laura mentioned about the importance of the funding sources. One of the other funding sources that has just come out, go ahead, Laura, click it one more time, is the PA dual credit innovation grants that are around. And so we were fortunate to be awarded with these monies in 2025, this past year. And so, like I said, we had 37 students the first year with a 95% retention rate. We now have 43 in education, but we've expanded also to include our exploratory studies track as well. So we actually have 73 kids in the entire program going through this at this time. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how we prepare teachers. And actually, before I get into that, I saw a question in the chat. If you want to see the full list of partners, if you Google Kutztown University Early College Academy, on that website, we have a link to all the district partners. So we are currently in 5, we have school districts from 5 counties that are participating. What's on there wasn't the full list. Those were just the Berks County Schools list. And those that are on the list are those that have just, we've reached out to everyone, that those are the ones who are willing and want to participate at this time. And we, revisit and talk to all of our districts every year if anyone would like to join to be part of it. So now that we have them in the recruitment piece, let's talk about that prepare piece. And I think a key piece here is how do we continue to build on those clinical experiences? How do we think about the clinical component, not just as an add-on, but really as a thoughtful clinical curriculum that consists of introductory experiences like they got in the Early College Academy, that consist of mid-level and then advanced, like we see in student teaching. So just so you have a little background about Kutztown University, we have about 1,700, go ahead, Laura. Yep, more than 1,700 students in the College of Education alone. We have over 27 certification programs, and we've been working with our faculty to rethink what that clinical curriculum looks like in partnership with our schools. One of the other things I'd like to share of an initiative is our secondary education program. So Laura mentioned, you saw that chart that Ed Fuller had created where, just a few years ago, that emergency cert had reached higher. And Mary brought up the fact that there's this intern certification program where people in Pennsylvania can get certified while they are teaching. One of the things our districts told us was October. October is the month where, up to that point, it either makes or breaks someone who might be in the intern program. And many times they leave by October. And so we said, okay, if we know there's a need, how do we better support our districts and how do we better support those that are getting this certification, the intern program, in those first critical months to ensure that those first days of school are well done, that the teachers feel prepared, and that they stay and are supported. So our secondary education program heard this. We do have a lot of intern certification students in there. We revamped the order of our curriculum to align better to meet with the school's needs and the students' needs. Our faculty are working together as a team, and they all got life coach certified so that they're serving as both life and learning coaches. Meaning that, when Laura talks about going out in the clinical experience, there's a whole research base under how we support the teaching of teaching in the clinic. And so people have to be skilled to do that. They need high quality clinical coaching. And so that's what we're doing in this space, is to really think about that clinical coaching to support that development. And go ahead, Laura, get those last bullets off for me. The other thing that we're doing to ensure high quality clinical preparation is that we've restructured at Kutztown University to really center clinical practice. We have an Office of Clinical Education and Partnerships that shows our intent. We have resourced it to work well with our partners. And, we've also partnered with, I see in here too about our community college, where we do have some relationships between RAC in particular, but our other, as well as our other community colleges, to transition right into KU. So we are trying to work as best we can with everyone to address that pipeline. And lastly, just to bring up kind of those, go back one more time, Laura, I just want to talk about money. Everyone always wants to talk about money. So let's make sure we talk about money. It's important that we pull these money pieces together to help students to really subsidize, as Laura talks about, not more money, but like what money is out there and how do we help them package it together. And so you've seen some of the grants. Grow PA is very critical in this piece. You heard about the student teaching stipend. That has been a game changer for so many students. And we also at Kutztown are working on grants to help support students, and we have scholarships. So we have over 100 and some scholarships that have equated to about, just over $730,000 to provide students with money to help them get into teaching. All right, so that's preparation. Now let's talk about retention quickly. So the last part of that pipeline is, okay, we've recruited them in, we've worked together to, have high quality preparation. Now we want to retain them. And historically, we've thought of the preparation part as the university's job, and we thought about the retentions piece as the school district's job. But really, the whole system is everyone's job. And so some of the great pieces about policy in Pennsylvania is that they've created this, when you get certified, you come in with your instructional 1 certificate. And you have so many years to get your instructional 2 or your permanent certification, right? Districts also, in their collective bargaining agreements, pay for those advanced courses and coursework to help you, get your permanent certification. Well, what happens is if teachers are taking, a course here, a course there, that's fine, it works, but it doesn't help move. If you can get a collective group moving towards something, you can really get systemic change. So by partnering with school districts to rethink induction, go ahead, Laura, and retention, we are getting cohorts of teachers that come through, just them, aligned to a specific school district strategy that they want to implement. And we're rethinking what teacher professional learning looks like, as well as graduate coursework, so that teachers can get advanced credentials while on the job aligned to what they're doing. And that's working towards equating change in their district. So go ahead, Laura, make sure those last couple things got up. Right, thank you very much. So I talked about doing differently. I talked about thinking differently. Well, if we think differently about what teacher learning looks like and what advanced credentialing and certification looks like, we can work together to utilize funding sources that helps teachers not only get those advanced certifications, but that helps districts move on their strategic priorities and strategic goals. Simultaneously, we're starting to think about how do we now also use these advanced credentials as career ladders or career trajectories for teachers? Many times teachers think the only advancement for me is to go into the principalship, and that is a really well-defined career ladder and trajectory. But we also know that some teachers don't necessarily want that. They'd like to do other things. So how do we recognize, our specialists, our interventionists, being a mentor teacher, not only to new teachers, but also teacher candidates? How do we look at coaches and coaching, curriculum development? So all of these can be career trajectories for teachers. And if we rethink what the credentialing looks like together, we can help create that advancement. And so finally, just to sum it all up, again, so when you're thinking about, what do you have going on? How do you put these pieces together? How do you make one systemic approach? And here at Kutztown with our partners locally in Berks County and in our surrounding counties, we're working together to think differently and do differently to attract, really through our Early College Academy, to ensure we've got well-prepared, high-quality teachers that are ready to begin their careers in collaboration with our schools. And how are we think differently about addressing those working conditions, rethinking teacher professional learning, and rethinking advanced credentialing?
Thank you so much, Dr. Burns. So, we have a little bit of a tricky task here because we both are trying to impress upon you the gravity of this challenge and the fact that there are some warning signs up ahead that if we don't address them, the shortage could get worse. And we also want to give you some hope that we are seeing some signs that both these local initiatives and strategies, as well as some of our statewide policies, are starting to have some success. In the past couple of years, we have seen some signs of the shortage abating from some of the most intense sort of data of about 2022 to 2023. Vacancies are slightly down from 2 years ago to last year. We've seen a slight uptick in certifications and educator preparation program enrollment. I will say that it's not nearly high enough to actually meet the needs that we have, but at least it's not going in the wrong direction anymore. And educator diversity is slightly up as well. So again, we don't want you to take the message that our work is done and that we can just continue with the status quo. As Rebecca said, it's extremely important for us to continue to think in these bold and systemic ways. But we also do see evidence that the efforts that are being put in and the creative solutions that are starting to be implemented are showing some signs of success. And so with that, I know there have been a lot of questions, and Dave, I assume you might want to moderate the Q&A, but thank you so much for the opportunity to share some of these thoughts with you. And we will take down the slides and look forward to the conversation.
Great. Thank you, ladies. It was a great presentation, very inspiring, very good. One of the things that stood out to me was the Reading School District being so different from all the other districts. What's going on there? What's the problem at the Reading School District that having more vacancies, more problems finding people? Is it?
It's the sheer size of the school district. They have
Mhm.
for enrollment in students, they have 4 times than the other school districts in Pennsylvania.
Say that again?
So they have their enrollment for students is around 16,000, where the other
Right.
school districts in Berks County are averaging around 2,000. So
So
it's just a
eight times as
huge,
big.
yeah, yeah.
But the number of vacancies, number of holes they have in teaching is more than 8 times bigger than the other
Hmm.
districts.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Is there something else going on there that's a challenge to them?
I can't sort of say specifically to Reading, but can speak a little bit more just from the kind of policy level that this is in line with trends that we see statewide, where urban school districts, particularly those that have been historically underfunded, do tend to have more severe shortages. And so it's
Mhm.
not just a matter of size, but also, as I mentioned earlier, um, we won't go into all of the details of K to 12 school funding, but the state has recently developed a methodology for trying to calculate how much a school district should have on a per pupil basis based on their student population and factors of student need that the research tells us means that they need additional dollars. So number of special education students, number of English language learners, number of students in poverty. By all of those measures, Reading has a great amount of student need,
Right.
so their target for how much they should be spending is relatively high, based on the number of students. And they've historically been funded at very low levels because of low property wealth. Our system has been reliant on property taxes historically. And so, again, like on a per pupil basis, Reading School District is the most underfunded school district in the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, not just in
Mm.
terms of Berks County. And so when we think about that, that translates to lower teacher salaries compared to others because there are fewer resources. It probably translates to bigger class sizes, more challenges within the school district, more challenges within the school population, and all of those things are kind of working against Reading as they're trying to recruit teachers compared to more affluent surrounding school districts. There are probably also more specific local conditions that I couldn't speak to, but we see similar patterns in many of the urban centers around Pennsylvania. And so school funding is certainly one piece, as well as student demographics and some of these other kind of challenges.
One of the things that got talked about was sort of different teaching of teaching, uh, more engagement of teachers in the process. I mean, I think there's a sense of a lot of people that person becomes a teacher at 23 and stays a teacher till they're 63 and nothing changes. Rebecca, I think you talked about that a little bit. You want to talk about that a little bit more?
In terms of opportunities for teachers or like how we teach about teaching.
A little bit of both, I think, because I think you made it sound like there's a lot of thinking going into that whole process of keeping, retaining, and educating teachers, not just hiring somebody when they're 23 and tell them to go do this for 40 years.
Sure, absolutely. So, and any business, right, and any entity thinks about their workforce and says, how do we continually keep our workforce rejuvenated, right? How do we ensure that, their professional needs are fulfilled, they are thinking, they're learning, they're thriving, there's a good community context. And I think, we have to kind of find ways to work together to advance teacher careers. One of the things, a hope that I personally have that I have seen happen. So, just also a little background on me. I am a Berks County native, very proud Berks County native, a graduate of Wilson High School. And after I got my doctorate, I went to Florida for 11 years. And so I've worked in a significant amount of time in a very different kind of policy context towards education. And coming home to Berks County and coming home to Pennsylvania has been really great for my family, for my children. I'm a mom too. And one of the things that is really important is how do we show teachers, great teachers, as you saw, Laura said, right? The quality of the teacher matters. And not only does it have just an impact there, but it has a lifetime impact on wages, right? So we have great teachers. How do we keep them professionally rejuvenated? And in using our Teacher Leadership Academy, recognizes teachers who are starting in their career pan, but their career span, but need a little more. And so how do we help them start to think about the leadership? How do we help them learn the mentoring skills, the coaching skills, more depth in their specific content area so that they start to teach not just children, but they're also starting to think about how do I teach my peers? How do I teach teachers? And that next layer, and also, getting their advanced credentialing while doing this, we're seeing as, part of this professional rejuvenation. They're reading, they're learning, they're reflecting, they're coaching differently. And so it's now we have these credentials, but now it's working together with the state level, with our school districts and our universities to say, okay, if you get this credential, is there a financial incentive that, says you have now this credential for mentoring and coaching, right? Is there some type of, salary benefit or stipend or something that says when you mentor and coach, you can get that as well, or you have this credential. So I think, Dave, it's about bringing some stakeholders together and saying, how do we lay out? We have these pieces. How now do we lay them out into pathways and trajectories to help teachers stay professionally fulfilled so that they stay in the profession? And I didn't even get into teaching about teaching in clinical pedagogy, which is a whole other research base, but we'll go to another question.
Okay,
I can
good.
certainly come
I'm going
back
to
to
call
that.
on. No, that's okay. Lots to hear though, lots to listen. I'm going to call on different people in the audience to ask questions, and I'm going to start with my colleague, Jose. Jose, you have a couple questions?
It's not me, it's someone with the
With your
name
name, that
from
stole
the
your
link.
name.
So
Would the Unreal Jose please ask
yeah,
questions?
the person that wants to share their experience.
Meanwhile, I'll call on somebody else.
I
Missy,
think
you
I
have,
think I see they just came off of mute.
okay.
Maybe. No. It's a little quiet. I thought heard somebody say, "Can you hear me?"
Yeah.
We can't hear you very well.
Yeah, not very well. I'm going to call on somebody else and we'll come back to you. Missy Orlando, you had a couple questions. You want to?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And honestly, the presentation was fabulous. Rebecca, it's always great to hear you share. And I threw the mention in there because to everybody's point, we see this as an integrated process from K all the way through however long it is that you might want to work. The integration and going after people who have had successful professional careers, who have a multitude of skills, uh, and going after them and enticing them to want to get certified and teach is an area where we've had success. And we've only scratched the surface. So I brought that up just to say it's the undergrad piece that we look at. It's the students that, like you said, they're a collective audience every day for almost 300, 180 days of the year. But there are a lot of professionals out there we need to tap into. And so I'm sure, like you, we will partner and work very closely with Workforce Development Board locally and really look at in the partnerships that we have with corporations who might be interested in doing this. But it goes back to a point you made, which is you almost have to look at someone who's built their financial wealth first, and then they're okay with taking a less of a pay because they're doing this as a second career. So that point about being able to somehow make the platform more amenable is really critical. So this is a long way of saying Alvernia loves being a part of this conversation. And most importantly, we look at this as a mission-driven type of mission that this only makes our communities that much better. And it starts with the kids who are our future. So we know that there's a cliff, but there are a lot of people out there that are getting ready to think about second careers, and we think they're a viable audience.
Absolutely.
And
That's really such a great point, Missy, about we didn't talk a lot about career changers, but that's another potential pool. And I think it also speaks to the idea of how do we maintain like really high quality preparatory experiences for that person who's coming in. They probably have content expertise, but maybe not the pedagogy and the knowledge of how to teach. And how do we provide the flexibility with those preparation experiences for somebody who's maybe trying to go back to school to get certified while they're continuing in their career? So those evening options, those more non-traditional schedules that are, again, not about just giving you a piece of paper and throwing you to the wolves, but preparing you in a high quality way that makes sense for a working professional or a career changer and is also affordable.
We had a couple other people who had raised a bunch of questions. Bill Liffman, I'm going to ask you, do you want to condense some of your questions into one or two questions here?
Wow, that's asking a lot.
Yeah. It's a challenge.
And I'm trying to remember some of them, but
Doctor's thing,
well, just
GI Bill.
we talked maybe about the GI Bill as a way to, similar to the GI Bill, a way to encourage teachers by covering their education costs as long as they commit to, say, 10 years of teaching in a public school or teaching in a public school in a certain economically distressed area, if that's maybe part of the issue. That was one of the thoughts. And the other is I'm wondering if there's any kind of collaborative things with the faculty where, so when you're a teacher, you're in a classroom with kids, but do they actually get to talk to their peers, to their other teachers in any kind of way to provide support to each other? I'm thinking specifically civics or social studies, because I've asked if there's any kind of collaborative effort among social studies teachers in Berks County, and I understand there isn't. I'm wondering if that would help prolong teachers' willingness to stay in the profession because they feel like they're part of a community.
can I comment on that a second?
Yeah, go for it.
Sure.
I had some thoughts too, but go for it, Rebecca. We're probably pretty aligned.
We probably are. So, Bill, thank you so much for bringing that up. You raised two really important words, community. Well, one important, many, but community, right, and collaboration. And so, not like I think in your standpoint, the subject area of social studies or civics and thinking across, I think the IUs do a lot of great job in bringing teachers together. And for sure, we can, Mary and Jill, I see is on here too. Dr. Hackman, can talk about some of the work the IUs are doing. I want to comment too about that Teacher Leadership Academy that I mentioned, where that bill is bringing teachers together. And one of the models is within a singular school. So it's hard to believe it, but even within a single school, some teachers don't get to talk to other teachers and don't even know who they are. And so by creating this Teacher Leadership Academy where they're coming together that's co-taught by a university faculty member and a school district representative, and it's part of the teacher's day. We build it into the teacher's day so that they have time to read and discuss and bring examples from practice, go back and try, gather data, come back. They're getting that community, and that is a key piece for the retention. And one last thing, we're also hearing them talk about something that we're naming collective efficacy. Meaning, not only now is the change about in my own classroom, but I'm starting to see that I'm part of something larger, and that when I'm working with my peers, we're actually seeing change greater happening either across our grades or our departments or the school, and sometimes even the district. And so this part about having this community connection, but also that the work I'm doing, I can see it and it's mattering, that also contributes to that professional rejuvenation and that fulfillment. Go ahead, Laura.
Thank you. I was going to first just affirm the GI Bill idea and say that several of the initiatives that were mentioned, like the student teacher stipend program and the Grow PA program, are built in a similar way where you're receiving a financial incentive in exchange for a commitment of a certain amount of time teaching in a Pennsylvania school. Ultimately, my dream is, and I borrowed this from the National Center for Grow Your Own, that it would become free. It would be free to become a teacher in Pennsylvania, and that you could get paid to do so. And that is really the model that we see within the apprenticeship world, which is becoming a new and growing pathway into teaching. But ultimately, that I would love to get that to that point. Obviously, resource constraints are always a challenge to get to that totally free model, but I do agree with you that the GI Bill is such a great model and a way of signaling that we value, education as a profession in the same way that we value military service. The only other thing I would say around the collaboration aspect, just like Rebecca said, it varies very much from school to school how much support and collaboration and co-planning time that teachers get. Sometimes schedules can be constraints to that, and there's just not time built into the day. Our most recent PA Needs Teachers Summit this past November was really exploring some innovative staffing models that are being tried around the country where school schedules are really being completely redesigned from scratch. In some cases, teacher roles are being differentiated in ways that create opportunities for those experienced, effective teachers to really lead in some of the ways Rebecca talked about, while also creating more, manageable workloads and student loads for rookie teachers as they're learning, but also building in more planning and collaboration time throughout the day. So again, it comes down to sometimes thinking a little bit outside the box, thinking about programs like the Teacher Leader Academy to just break down some of those barriers and think about how do we reimagine what this role looks like. Because teaching as a career really has not changed very much in the last 100 years, but the students to really have, and just our society has, and we need to make it a more sustainable profession.
Thank you, Laura. That's very helpful, I think, because I think there's this perception somebody becomes a teacher at 23 and keeps doing the same thing till they're 63, and the only people they interact with are the students on a regular basis. So talk a
Right.
little
There's
bit more
this sort
about,
of stereotype of like I close my classroom door and
yeah.
I'm on my own island for better or for worse.
So it's important to think about other ways that they can grow in their career. It may not be reflected in the salary enough.
May I say something? Can you hear
Um,
me now?
Yes, we can.
sure.
Oh, thank you. So, what I wanted to say is everything comes very simple to a simple principle. We took for granted the teachers. We just took them for granted, and we forget that they are human beings. So they would like to have a career full of enthusiasm. So they would like to do what they like to do because there are plenty of people out there who love children and love to teach. But in the meantime, they want to be acknowledged like everybody else, and they need some money to live. So, what I can tell you from my experience in Wyoming, not Reading School District, the Wyoming, where my daughter went there for a while. So she was probably in 10th grade or ninth grade. She had a great English teacher, and she was so excited that the next year she will have the other very good English teacher. And she said, Mom, she's a really good one. People who take SAT before her and after her, the difference is it's significant for everybody. So she was well known, a very good teacher. And what happened in the summer, she tried to negotiate because she was close to retirement. And she said, I want an incentive in my salary or I would retire. And the school district said no, and she retired. And my daughter was devastated. And anyway, but what I saw later, I saw state-of-the-art baseball field and state-of-the-art fence and so and so and so. So if I don't know how this can be done, but somehow if the boards of the school district will, because we are homeowners and we pay a lot of taxes, but 70, 80% of those taxes go to the school district. And we would love those taxes to go into the teachers, not into the good teacher, and somehow incentivize the good teachers. Not to build who knows what state-of-the-art fences or whatever. So that would be another way to retain the good teachers, like consider them as human beings. They need money to live. Now, another thing that could be done theoretically, the school districts can make some agreements with the banks, the local banks. So, okay, we got this teacher. He wants to buy a house. So give them a preferred rent because it's our school district teacher. So he can buy a house if we cannot give him a better salary. Or with the rent. Okay, here is the condominium. We got a new young teacher, give him a preferred rent so he can live close to the school or whatever. So there are a lot of things that can be done if they will collaborate and if they will acknowledge the value of a good teacher. Because if we have a good teacher, our future society will be better.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Rebecca or Laura, do you have any response to that, Mary?
100% agree
say in
that
response?
I agree with the commenters' general sentiments. I do think that's a great point that while there are some issues around, funding systems, there's also, a lot of discretion at the local level in terms of what percentage of what budgets are going towards in general. And I do think, the best way to advocate there is to go to your school board meetings and say, and to get involved in their local budgeting process and say we should be, investing in our teachers. This is an evidence-based way, the best use of our school dollars if we want to really benefit students. And I think on the sort of housing incentive side, we're hearing I'm based in Philadelphia, and we're hearing some hints from our mayor that there actually might be some housing incentives for teachers as part of the Philadelphia city budget this year. This is something we've seen in other parts of the country. The research is a little bit mixed when you survey teachers in terms of how important where they would rank that as a benefit. They definitely, their top preference is if there's additional resources, they'd prefer it to go into salary or loan forgiveness compared to housing incentives. But it is also one of those things where it sends a signal of being valued and could be a nice incentive, even if it's not the only incentive that would be valuable.
Terry Hill, I'm going to ask you to ask your question. Terry is with the Berks Business Education Coalition, which is a partnership of school districts and business leaders. Terry?
Yeah, so my question, and it's been brewing. So I love all this innovation and I love all the creative solutions that are being talked about. But what I've heard is that there's limitations or sometimes restrictions around the union contracts and what that negotiation looks like and what schools can or cannot do. I'm saying this is not the solution, but I will say when I was hearing about certain schools that were having trouble finding a specific knowledge, special teacher, like a business teacher or something, about sharing resources. That's not a possibility because of the way teachers' contracts are structured. So how do you feel, or what has your experience been working with the union side in order to, create these and these opportunities to improve?
I'm happy to go, but I'd love to have Mary or Rebecca if you have more local examples.
Sure. I just know working with our unions and then talking to the other school districts about their relationships with the unions, they are very much in favor of increasing the teacher pipeline. They, in fact, are part of the conversation and contribute to giving us ideas and suggestions and looking at to what I think Dr. West Burns had said earlier, like engaging with with the employee, the new employees, so that they do feel welcomed and engaged with the school district, so they'll want to retain and stay with it, stay in education.
And I would add that the Pennsylvania State Education Association, PSEA, has been a great partner of ours on a number of our different state recruitment efforts, such as the student teacher stipend and the apprenticeship pathway. As Mary said, I think they're very concerned about increasing the pipeline for two reasons. Number one, that helps them to continue to grow their membership if they have more teachers coming into the pipeline. And number two, it's really affecting their members when there are these shortages. Some of these things that are about redesigning the school do have a lot of implications for local collective bargaining agreements. But in my experience, when unions are really engaged from the beginning and they have a seat at the table to co-create those pieces, you can find solutions, and contracts don't need to be barriers if they're treated as partners.
Thank you.
And I would just add too on there, as we keep these communication lines open, the part I mentioned about partnership, schools, school districts, unions, universities are all part of this ecosystem. And we have to make sure that, we're talking about all of them. We don't leave out one entity or another. We're all part of this ecosystem that's trying to work together.
Rory Stevenson, you had a bunch of questions you raised. I don't know if you want to bring up one or two of them before we go.
I actually, to be honest with you, I think I'm learning more than I have by not asking questions. I would just like to comment. I've been with the Berks County Workforce Development Board for 18 years now, and over the course of those 18 years, I have to be honest with you, across all industry sectors in Berks County, there has not been a lot of succession planning going on. And I think that has pretty much impacted the educator side also, and that it's good to have a KU in Berks County, especially since they are steeped in history with their education programs and how well they produce educators both locally and nationally. But one of the things that I've recognized and I've started to see it in across different industry sectors here is a realization that it's not only a recruitment issue, as was mentioned really well during this meeting, it's also a retention issue. And I am 100% behind that aspect. I guess the couple of questions that I had were answered. One was, how long do the emergency certifications last? I understand it's year by year. The other question I had is, and I've been hearing this for years, I do an awful lot of work with the CTCs and the IU in reference to Career Ready Berks and things of that nature for all 18 school districts in Berks County. And one of the things I've been hearing for several years now is a call statewide to start to consolidate school districts. They just think there's too many school districts in Berks County. And I guess my primary question would be, Laura, based on your experience and what you've been seeing research-wise, would that be considered a possible advantage or a probable detriment to the recruitment and retention of educators statewide?
Sure. There is sort of continuous talk about school district consolidation, and there have been a few waves of school district consolidation in Pennsylvania. And I know it continues to be discussed in Harrisburg. I think there are a lot of political barriers to doing so. And I've often heard it said that the biggest one is that people are so attached to their high school mascots and the idea of losing those schools. The research is a little bit mixed on whether school consolidation or district consolidation leads to cost savings, which could be a way of potentially reducing the number of staffing positions and or being able to pay teachers more because you weren't needing as many positions. Some research has shown that it can lead to significant efficiencies and savings, and other research has shown that it doesn't often yield that amount. One potential benefit of consolidation is it can sometimes level out some of those really big funding disparities that happen because of the smaller districts really concentrating wealth. So from my perspective, it is most likely to happen and to be successful if there's some kind of a state policy framework rather than it happening on a per district by district basis. And I will honestly say I don't know that I see a lot of political appetite for doing that in the near future in Pennsylvania. From my perspective, I think it's a conversation we should keep on having, because I think that as you get to these larger districts, you potentially get to the possibility of more shared services, more efficiencies, and being able to really kind of right size the educator workforce and invest, more in teacher salaries, because you're not necessarily investing in a bunch of teachers who don't have a full class because the school's so small and so forth. But it's a very complex topic.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure that's why it's been bounced around for many years now with no concrete direction. The only other thing I wanted to offer, Dave, was I put in the chat the the Workforce Development Board's industry sector priority
Right.
strategies. As you're probably aware, a couple of years ago, we became very, very aware post-pandemic of the crisis, teacher crisis here in Berks County. So we have made it a watch industry with regard to where we may be able to apply federal and possibly state funding to assist in any kind of recruitment and retention strategies that might be developed.
Great. Thank you, Laurie.
Thank you.
Just really quickly to the point you raised. A long time ago, my first job was working for the Senate Education Committee, and was after a period of time when Pennsylvania did voluntary and then mandatory consolidation, and we had a whole bunch of school districts that were complaining about the football team wearing the wrong colors, all sorts of stuff. We do have, I think he's still here. Cesar Cepeda had asked a question, but I think he just disappeared on me. Laura, Rebecca, Mary, do you have any final comments you want to offer? And then I'm going to let Jose talk for a minute.
Just thank you so much for having us. And, that's a lot to cover in a very short period of time. So, of course, feel free to reach out. I'm sure all of my colleagues here would be willing to, chat more or talk more. And I appreciate our county engaging in this important conversation. And I hope this is just the first of many.
Thank you. Laura, Mary, anything?
Thank you for the opportunity. I put my email in the chat. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, thank you. We will share all that information. Jose, do you want to talk about upcoming events and other things that you sent in your text message to me?
Yeah, thank you all for coming. Don't forget to sign up to the newsletter to learn about upcoming events. The next one is next week. Is gonna be the Berks premiere of the documentary Unprotected, followed by a Q&A with our CEO, Chris Baxter, and investigative reporter, Angela Columbus. It's gonna be at the Google Works, so tickets are available through their website. And our next forum, it's on February 19th, and it will cover Berks workforce development. You can sign up through our Eventbrite or website. The recording of this meeting will be sent before the end of the day tomorrow to all of you.
Well, thank you, everybody. And as Jose mentioned, please join us for our upcoming forum on the workforce development in Berks County next month. We really appreciate it. This is a great topic, a critical topic for the future of our common. Laura, Rebecca, Mary, for doing this. It was a terrific presentation. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we hope to see you again next month.